Hi friends, this is Jake at Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're taking a look at the Real Steel E571. Why am I interested in this knife after it's been out for a couple of years? Well, because it's at a good budget price, and I wasn't going to be doing this video of this knife because I already had the S571 Pro, and I reviewed that quite a while ago. And now that I'm thinking about it, or not now, but I started thinking about it, that's an older video of mine. I wasn't doing my videos as well back then, so I figured I'd go back and look at this again, except for the fact I sold my S571 Pro back when I was in desperate need of some funds. I really, really wish I still had that knife. It was a limited numbered edition. I think 500 was all that they made. And I miss that knife something a lot. But let's see how close this comes to fulfilling my desire to having that model. So the E571 from Real Steel Knives coming to you right now. I really would have liked to have started this video with a comparison of the two knives beside each other. Actually, I haven't even double checked the sizes. I have a feeling that this is a little bit smaller than the S571 Pro. And you might hear my little doggy's footprints pitter-pattering around if you've got headphones on maybe. But let's do a size comparison with the way we normally do it for this knife, the Ontario, or all our knives, the Ontario Rat 1. So if we take a look there, it definitely is a smaller knife than the Ontario Rat. And if we put the cutting edges together, these two knives are actually very close to the same in terms of cutting edge, but different in terms of handle length. If we get that pivot point that's close together, or that finger choil spot. But when you really think about it, it's not that awful much less. This is closer to the camera, which makes a difference too. So if I lift that up to the same height, now it looks a whole lot better. The handle doesn't come out a whole lot further on this knife than it does on the one we're looking at today. So what we're talking about is a knife that has, a good grip on it. Here's a reverse grip, and you can see the handle coming out there. And my hands are between large and extra large in, Western gloves, men's glove sizes. It's a good size knife. You can put your finger up front and pull a little bit if you want to, although there's not really a forward finger choil, but that flipper tab is given a fair bit of real estate right there. It's a knife that fits in the hand very well. All kinds of grips. Pinch grip up here if you want to. Pinch grip back here. If I keep everything on the camera. Like I had a reverse grip before, sticking out just a little bit. Reverse pull grip. That can get a little uncomfortable with the flipper tab there digging into the flesh on the palm of the hand when you grab it like that. But it's a comfortable knife in most ways, in my opinion. I like how it feels in the hand. You've got that forward slant on that grind, just like the S571 has. Not a big deal. In terms of for cutting things, you got a really deep full flat grind, and there's the 14C28N, whereas the original one has LMAX steel. Model number Lanyard designer, and Real Steel on this side. And I got a little bit of oil residue on. No, it actually it is shiny that way, even if I dry it off. So the pivot pin. It's a fixed pivot pin, so it doesn't freely spin. So you've got screws on this side, T8, T6, T6, and T6 is back here as well. It's the exact same shape as the original, and it's a very comfortable shape. You put it in the palm of your hand, and that sort of just fills in there. You grab it in here. It's just a comfortable feeling in hand. You've got the nice chamfering on the sides, on the edges of the handle. all over. Everything else is just nicely rounded. You've got that over travel stop and locking mechanism here. This is if your knife is in open locked position, push that button forward, and now you cannot disengage the lock completely. And you can move the lock bar arm just slightly, but you can't disengage it. A lot of people like those kinds of things. Yeah, I don't care one way or the other. I'm not a pro or a con on that thing. Then we've got the pocket clip. It's a deep carry pocket clip, but it's not set up right at the end of the handle. You've got rounded buttons, rounded button type screws. I wish they would have been recessed screws. It can get caught up a little bit on the pants when you put it in, but the front, maybe what you call the spoon of the pocket clip there, the way it's designed, directs the pants to go down and under the clip, and it works very well. How that is, so let's show you how it is in an actual pair of jeans. So there's my prop, and let's see. So you put it on and you just push it in, and see it got caught right on that button, that screw I mean. And now I got it past. Take it out, let's try it again. Over here a little bit. That time it went in all the way just fine. Do it again, goes in all the way just fine. And it got caught again there. And the reason it's getting caught there more easily is, as you can see, my pocket's starting to come apart. So on nice new pants, it's not a problem. But as your pants age, if you are a knife guy and you're carrying knives all the time, you know exactly what this is right here. That is causing it to catch a little bit sometimes. Oh, I didn't mention this knife comes in two colors. It's got the black wash, the black stone wash, if you will, and then in regular steel stone wash. It's an all steel construction, except for the brass or bronze or whatever that material is that's holding the cage for the ball bearings. I'll show you the inside of the knife in a little while. Flipper tab is one of those, sort of like a sharp fin flipper tab. Without there needing to be any jimping on it, you get a good grip on it every time. Pull back, light switch method makes that knife blade just deploy very, very well. And if you push back just on a slight angle, it works that way as well. It's got a very good detent, and so it flips very well in either hand as long as you don't have your thumb over the lock bar arm. Functionality, that's great. There's no blade play, side to side, up and down. That's good. Lockup, actually it's a little bit later than I'd like it to be. The leading edge of the frame lock arm is a little past halfway across. And as you can see, when the knife is closed, the blade centering is very good. Not perfect, but very good. The jimping that we do have is right there on the release part for the frame lock arm. And the frame lock arm does sit a little bit proud, so it's very easy to engage it with your thumb to disengage that lock. You can get it every single time without any challenge or difficulty or hiccups in that process. So that's great. You've got your flat stone wash. There's no milling, there's no decoration on the knife at all. You've got the button kind of screws, but they're recessed, so they're basically flat. There's a very slight bump if you rub your finger on it. You've got open pillar construction there. You've got two of those hourglass shaped pins. And then what's this right here? Well, that is your lanyard option. So as you can see just barely, and I'll show you some of these pins on a close-up. It's a little hard to do a black knife on video very well. But there's a hole through there, so it's easy. You'll fish some paracord through that and tie it off. That piece can rotate inside here. If the knife is tightened too much, then not, but you could always loosen this screw here a little bit, and you'd be able to rotate that to face whichever way you want the hole to face. So that's kind of nice. It keeps a clean look here, so you don't have a lanyard hole on the end of the handle here. You've got it tucked in back there. That's a good look. The general shape of the knife I really like. Liang Gang is a very good designer. He designed a lot of the Sanrenmu knives as well. He's a big designer for that whole group of companies, Real Steel, Sanrenmu, and Rake knives. It's a good knife. I like it. Let's talk about the blade a little bit. We've got a drop point here as well. I didn't talk about that before, but the tip of it is quite fine. Your distal taper starts, right about halfway or right around the word steel on the Real Steel logo there. It starts getting more narrow, and then that narrowing speeds up in that last inch, and then it comes down to the point. So it's a fairly thin point there. If you did pry with it, chances are fairly high that you're going to break that tip off. And so you got a gentle belly on this knife all the way down, maybe a little bit of a straight section there. And it's thin behind the grind, and it's ground fairly well. I'll show you a close-up picture of this spot right here. So you got the plunge coming across, and when they sharpened it, whoever was sharpening it touched the knife, the stone right into the plunge there. So there's a tiny spot there where the factory did a little bit of a mistake right there and put a little bit of grinding in the plunge. Most companies, you see knives like that every once in a while, but I wasn't expecting that from Real Steel, although this is a budget knife. This side was done cleanly all the way across. Before I get into more about that, let's talk about all the sizes, dimensions, all that kind of specs and information about this knife. And while I'm doing that, this measuring tape will be on the screen in the corner here. So what do we have? We've got 14C28N Sandvik steel, Rockwell hardness around 59 for this knife. We've got the weight of the knife, 119 grams, which is 4.2 ounces. So not bad at all. There is a bit of milling done inside to release weight inside this knife, and I'll take a look at that in a little while. The factory sharpness, 125 bests. Very good, and you'll understand part of that reason why is the grind angles, and I'll mention that in a second. The cutting edge length, 8.421 centimeters, which is 3.316 inches. The blade length from the tip to the closest spot on the handle is a little bit less, 8.27 centimeters, 3.255 inches. So 3¼ inch blade. The thickness of the blade steel up here where you have the ricasso, so you can see the full thickness of the thickest spot easily, or measure it, I should say, 2.99 millimeters. So basically 3 millimeter stock is what they started with. That's 0.1175 of an inch. So just under 1/8 of an inch, a tiny bit under. The blade depth this way, and I measure an inch up from the sharpener's choil, 2.56 centimeters, 1.006 inches. So 1 inch depth basically. The thickness of the edge behind the grind, 0.37 millimeters, which is 14.5 thousandths of an inch. So that's fairly thin. 14C28N can handle that. That's not a problem. And being a full flat grind, that's why this thing slices so very, very well. Another reason it slices so well, it's sharpened to, how did I get this? Yeah, this side here, 13.6 degrees on this side, 17.5 degrees on that side. So that's a fairly shallow angle combined, giving a very thin edge. Well, the edge is the same thickness all the time. Well, not all the time, but roughly. But very thin behind not only the main grind of the edge, but very thin, edge grind as well. So it slices very, very well. When I go to sharpen this, I probably am going to, like when it needs it the first time, do it to 17.5 degrees on both sides and, get that angle, make it a little bit more robust. Now for the handle specs, 10.8 centimeters long, 4.25 inches. So 4.25, 3.25, not a bad ratio there. The grip area, so between my thumbs, about 8.75 centimeters, 3.44 inches. The handle thickness, not counting the pocket clip and not on this button lock, extra lock here, 1.8 0.04 centimeters, which is 0.408 inches, so it's a little more narrow than a lot of knives. Not a big deal. The handle depth at the widest spot, not counting the flipper tab up here, is up here. I usually don't measure it up here on the pivot area, but the main part of the handle. 2.47 centimeters, 0.973, so basically an inch this way right here. And when the knife is closed, it is this way, 3.29 centimeters, 1.295 inches, so 1 1/3 inches, pretty close. And when the knife blade is deployed, it's almost exactly 19 centimeters, 7.48 inches, so 7.5 inches. Not bad. Balance point of this knife is right there. How much does this knife cost? Well, White Mountain Knives has the best price that I could find. A lot of places have it for $46.80 US, but you can get 10% off at White Mountain Knives with my coupon code CCE, and then it's $42.12. So it's definitely a budget knife, like this channel likes to do. And in Canadian dollars, that equivalent is about 55.75 Canadian. I found this knife at Amazon for just a little bit more than White Mountain Knives, and other stores have it a little bit more than White Mountain Knives as well. If you are across the pond over in Europe or the United Kingdom, Knives and Tools has this in the UK for 43.9 pounds or 49.8 euros. So it's got, a reasonable price to it. Of course, over there across the pond, there's a lot of extra taxes that we don't have here, but we don't have our taxes included in prices. We have to add our taxes on top. So let's talk about this thing, about what I like, don't like about this knife. It is certainly not as impressive as the S571 Pro, but it costs 1/5 as much money as well. So there's a reason, when things cost less, they have to go with cheaper materials, but this is fairly good materials. I like this 14C28N steel for the blade steel. It's a small step above what I call budget steel, and I do like a lot of budget steels. It's durable, it's not too hard to sharpen, the edge lasts fairly well, and it's, fairly tough. It's a good steel. Before I talk about the other things, let's show you a little bit of a video or some still pictures. I'm not sure what I'm going to do of the inside of the knife. And so here's the knife taken apart. You can see large areas that are skeletonized, and on the other side, it's even got tiny areas. They don't just go halfway. They do a lot of little things. Most companies would probably just have done a tiny little bit over here, but they, done a fair bit to, well, not really skeletonize, but to reduce the thickness of the steel, to reduce the weight of it. It's not done over here because remember, that's where the pocket clip is. Here's that lock. So there's that spring arm there that holds this little extra lock in place. And here's the steel ball bearings. And I can give you a close-up of that. And the keyed pivot pin, so it doesn't freely rotate because there's a sort of a D shape in here. There's a straight edge on the left side right here, which stops that pin from spinning when it goes through both sides of the handle. And here's a good thick stop pin. And everything's just made quite well to good tolerances. So there you go. Some more things about this knife. I think it's got a really good look to it. Liang Gang is a good designer. He knows what looks good, and he knows what's going to feel good in the hand. He's designed a lot of good knives. The action is awesome. It's got a good grip in multiple different grips. It's an awesome slicing blade. Good tip for delicate work. Pinch grips, like I talked about, so many grips are comfortable with this knife. It has no jimping anywhere except for on that lock release, but it doesn't need it. If you were to puncture into something and have it suddenly stop, your hand's not going to slide over. You've got a lot of protection when that flipper tab becomes a guard in the open position. what are the cons? In my opinion, the cons for this knife are, that little slight mistake when they sharpened and worked into the plunge. Well, I've done that myself when I sharpen knives quite a lot too, but you don't want to do that. So that's a little con. And the fact that they released this knife with lockup that was a little bit later than you like to have on new knives, that's a little con as well. I like this knife. It looks good. It feels good. It's got a good weight. It's secure in the hand. Oh, the other little bit of a con is I wish the pocket clip was a little bit closer to the end of the handle. That would be a little bit better. But all those things are nitpicky. Oh, and I really would like it to be left and right. It is, under $45 US. Well, technically the list price at most places is $46.80, but still, it's a budget knife. And a budget knife, put the pocket clip on both sides to serve the left-handed people as well without having to make them a special left-handed knife. Although I think this knife would do okay if they made a left-handed version. I don't know. I don't know about the sales numbers for Real Steel for this knife. But it's a good knife. I recommend it. And if you want to get one, White Mountain Knives is a good deal. I've got Amazon links down below. And like I said, those knifeandtool.co.uk link as well. I get nothing from Knife and Tool. The Amazon links are referral links. I do get a bit of a credit. And for White Mountain Knives, I get no money, no funding, no rebates, no refunds from them, except for the fact I do get a reviewer's rate when I buy knives from them. But I think I actually bought this knife from Amazon, and that was when White Mountain Knives didn't have any in stock, but they've got stock on both of those knives right now, both colors. So thanks for watching my video. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, guys, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb. Bye for now.